Okay, stand by.
Stand by. Always standing by. Can we sit by once?
You're listening to the Dean Martin Association podcast, the place for all things Dino. This episode, we're going to be chatting about Happiness Is, Dean's studio album from April 1967, and later we'll be talking with actor-singer Mark Adams about his career and performing as Dean. Welcome to Episode 5.
Lay some happiness on me, so the brighter side you'll see. No more loneliness to be. Lay some happiness on me. Tell me I'm great and I'll be greater. Fill me up and I'll fly. Love me now and I'll be glad later. And tell your troubles goodbye. Lay some happiness on me, so the brighter side you'll see. No more loneliness to be. Lay some happiness on me. Spill that cup of trouble and sorrow, sooner or better for you. Fill it up with a happy tomorrow. We got some living to do. Lay some happiness on me, so the brighter side you'll see. No more loneliness to be. Lay some happiness on me. Cuddle me up and I'll squeeze tighter. Honey, let's kiss me do. A good lover makes a bad fighter, and I'm not picking on you. Lay some happiness on me, so the brighter side you'll see. No more loneliness to be. Lay some happiness on me. Lay some happiness on me, so the brighter side you'll see. No more loneliness to be. Lay some happiness on me.
I wish there was more of a cleaned up video and audio from about 1984. Because I think in 84, 85, you saw the man without the image in many ways.
Yeah.
He did a number of interviews, and some of them are online, but they're all a bit grainy and a bit,
right,
VHS. But you just saw the man without the image, without the drawl, without the, anything else, just talking about himself in a really nice way. And it was almost the second, I was going to say the second coming, but it's like it was a revival of him at that point, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think you're right. A second coming probably is the right phrase to use. He certainly had a new lease of life from 1983 onwards, didn't he? With the Cannonball films, 81 and 84, then Nashville Sessions and Half Nelson series. So he did have a renaissance, I suppose. Yeah. He brought the roasts back. They were back in 1984.
He was honoured by Friars, which was part of one of the videos.
Yeah,
of one of the interviews. And even on the grainy bits, he looks great and he sounds great, and he is presenting as an ordinary human being with a career rather than the image of that career.
This caricature that he became. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I shared a couple of songs just this past week from the Nashville Sessions, and people have just loved it. I post the pictures of that time frame, and they have just loved seeing what he ended up being. In those later years.
Yeah.
And I think also at that point, he was as happy in his personal life as he could have ever been. He's back with Jeannie in one way or another.
Right.
The family was all complete. The children were all still alive and healthy and, pursuing their own careers.
His health was back.
Yeah. He got a handle on whatever tablets and things he'd, been on, and dieting and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think just for a few years, he was really, really back on it.
I think he was happy. Yeah, he was happy. Which kind of leads us nicely to kind of the theme of this podcast of Happiness is Dean Martin. It's kind of, more than just the album. It's kind of how he makes us feel, I suppose, when we listen to his music.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get that from any other artists, or many artists, I suppose. Really, there's certain kind of artists that I admire and like and follow that still have that pull for me, and I enjoy and get a lot out of the music. But I think Dean's always kind of there. There's that shining light that cuts through all of them, that you just think.
Well, but Elliot, it's not just his music. I mean, you can pop on an old video or a movie, and he just kind of, like 10,000 Bedrooms. Very, the critics are very hard on him and said it wasn't a great movie, but you can just sit there and you can see that he is rebuilding himself, because that is right after the split. And so you see this man that has that perseverance, and he was not going to give up. And, I think most of us probably would have walked away and said, I'll just do something else. But this is what he wanted to do from a very young age. And I mean, he blew it out of the water, honestly. And, I've told both of you, I don't think that the industry knew what to do with him, because we had this actor, we had this musician, vocalist, and then, oh, wait, we can also do TV shows. And, I think he was just very underrated, and he was very humble about it. He didn't ask or demand to be in the spotlight. He got in the spotlight just by walking on stage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, watching 10,000 Bedrooms recently for the first time in a long time, it's a wonderful film. And I was looking at it from a kind of critique point of view, thinking, well, why didn't it succeed? Why wasn't it?
I've done the same thing. Yeah.
And I can kind of see why, because kind of with Martin Lewis for 10 years, you kind of had them playing off each other, and there did seem something was missing from 10,000 Bedrooms. I didn't like to think it was Jerry that was missing, and I don't think it was, because it wasn't the story that needed his character. But I think kind of Dean was, as you said, Cindy, Dean was kind of finding himself, and it was his first foray out there on his own. And I think he did need somebody to bounce off of. And I think that's probably why he kind of fell into the kind of whole Rat Pack Clan kind of group, because he needed that rapport. And I think he found it hard by watching 10,000 Bedrooms to find that rapport with a good co-star. As much as Anna Maria Alberghetti is lovely and she's his co-star for that, as is Eva Bartok, I think he needed that different kind of geeky kind of lunatic kind of character, which I suppose we'd kind of grown to know Dean and Jerry rather than just Dean. So it was hard for the audience, I would imagine, to adapt to that.
Right. Well, they were a package.
Any bridge or transition era is always hard for someone, isn't it, to move from one thing to another. And that film was almost the morphing of that transition.
Yeah.
Right.
I was thinking of one of the liner notes that your dad wrote on the Dean Martin boxed LP set that he brought out, the World one in early 70s. And he wrote the line about, even whilst he's singing a sad song, you just get the sneaky feeling that he's smiling through it all. And it's that image, which sometimes you think, I can't remember which song it was, listened to the other day, and I thought, you're not actually singing these words in terms of what these words mean, because you sound far too happy and these words are far too sad. There was a dissonance, but it's that kind of, exudes happiness, which the problem with that is, people have often said Frank Sinatra was the most respected and Dean Martin was the most liked. If you're liked and seen to be jovial and happy all the time, you don't get the respect that people think.
You don't get taken seriously.
Seriously. And he lived in that, really, I think.
But
what you get from him, you get as an entertainer that makes you feel happy just by him doing anything, really.
Yeah, absolutely. it became, and I think he realized that early on that was his gimmick, for want of a better word.
I think it was also
He
his
had
gift.
that. His gift,
I do too. I think it was his calling.
Yeah.
Because he wanted you to be happy. And, you know, there are days that and my guys are so nice to me at work and so patient, because there are days that just one song plays on repeat. And, you know, they have began to listen to them. And they told me just recently, we understand why you listen to him, because he has that ability to either calm you down or get your job done. And somebody on Facebook just the other day wrote in the comment that, you know, his music is just one that kind of puts you in the mood, you know, that just kind of makes you happy, kind of fills those voids. And I don't think that he ever understood that. I just, you know, I don't think that he really knew the impact, even 28 years after he had passed away, that he would still have the impact and the influence on people. And not just our age people or older, but I mean, we're hitting some young kids that love his music, which kind of floors me. But
and when you look at, listen to the music of today, I mean, I must confess, I don't follow modern music. I don't. It's just not on my radar. But it's surprising, isn't it? As you say, Cindy, it does floor us that we've got such a young generation coming up behind us who want to know about this man, want to hear him.
I was listening to something about the psychology of children. The other just happened to came across it, and the psychologists are saying one of the most powerful and interesting things that's come to the fore in the psychology field is knowing your place in your history. For your own mental health, you know, so you're not dislocated.
I got your picture that you gave to me, and it's signed with love, just like it used to be. The only thing different, the only thing new, I got your picture, he's got you. I got your records that we used to share, and they still sound the same as when you were here. The only thing different, the only thing new, I've got the record, he's got you. I've got your memory, or has it got me? I really don't know, but I know it won't let me be. I got your class ring that proves you care, and it still looks the same as when you gave it, dear. The only thing different, oh, the only thing new, I got these little things, he's got you. I got your memory, or has it got me? I really don't know, but I know it won't let me be. I got your class ring that proved you'd care, and it still looks the same as when you gave it, dear. The only thing different, the only thing new, I got these little things, he's got you.
Was that his comfort zone? Was his comfort zone a repeat? I mean, was that where he found who he was, I guess? And he knew that he could do that. And so why learn something new? Let's just jazz it up. I mean, how many different versions of many of his songs did he come out with?
Yeah.
Each adapting to what era of music it was, whether it was I'm Walking My Baby Back Home or Old Man River. I mean, there were so many different versions that his directors just adapted for what time it was in his life.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously his studio albums themselves obviously were snapshots of that era. I mean, it's interesting, well, kind of looking at Happiness album. I thought to myself, how many of his songs have actually got electric guitars in them? There's 2 that I found on Happiness Is, that got electric guitars in it. But that was a kind of a whole new kind of instrument that was suddenly coming in. That was kind of
also
on the back end of the rock and roll era that he never took because he didn't like rock and roll. But it's interesting that his arrangers put that instrument in, and it was great how it sounds against his voice.
In the Dean Tex Martin album, there's quite a few. So you think of Karina, those kind of things.
Of course.
There are. I've often thought somebody should put together the Dean Martin rock and roll album, because there's a number of things with that kind of rhythm in them, a number of scattered all over the career, that you think these have never been put together and as just that style of music. And that's almost the hidden link in his.
What we need to do then is to get our heads together and put together a Spotify playlist.
I think so too. You know, there is a song that I just came across last week. I can't think of the name of it. I probably shared it. But a guy had put one of his songs to rap music. And it was actually pretty decent.
All right.
But, and, you know, that's the funny thing about, you know, I think it was on a Bob Hope show, or maybe it was on Frank's show, and they were talking about, or maybe it was on the Hollywood Palace. He was introducing the Rolling Stones, and he talked about how he did not like pop music. And you would be surprised at how many reviews classify him as a pop artist.
But he was of a different era. It was popular music singer. Not pop rock, but popular music.
Because that's right. The word pop kind of music kind of now kind of implies kind of bouncing, popping, kind of dancing rhythms, but obviously the real version of it is popular music. So I suppose the Rolling Stones isn't pop music. It's not a popular in that sense.
It's rock music.
Well,
rock,
I listen to his playlist as I walk, and I have to wonder what I look like if you were behind me. And if I'm popping down the trail, but he can give you a workout on some of them.
I actually did my own sort of poppy rock and roll kind of tape mix when I was a kid.
Did you?
And obviously that's well gone.
But it's kind of tapping into that kind of whole pop idea. But you're right, he is a pop singer, but only the fact the word pop means popular, not a pop
exactly. Well, and you know, as you look at the album Happiness is Dean Martin, so many of his albums were thematic. You know, the songs all kind of went together. But when you look at Happiness is Dean Martin, it's like making a stew and just putting stuff in it. So you know,
it's all over.
You
the
go
place.
from Lay Some Happiness on Me to 30 Miles to San Diego. So you know, we have covered so many different songs in this one album.
I think the probably the ones that are thematically similar will probably kind of Lay Some Happiness on Me and Let the Good Times In. They've both got that kind of bouncing poppy beat, for want of a better phrase.
They were put on a single. Both sides of it. They were both put on a single together.
They were.
I love Think About Me.
We often do. We often do.
We do. Whenever you're Elliot and I think about you each time we have a conversation and you're not there. Where's Ron?
Thank you.
Oh, you sweet, sweet, lovable you.
Well,
He's
as
got
always,
you.
I'm nobody's baby again.
It just happened that way.
See what imagination can do.
Oh, come on, let's just open up the door and let the good times in.
Well, if I ever get back to Georgia, I'll let you know, yeah. But you've still got a place in my heart, Rons. That's all that matters.
Well,
I
you won't
know.
take it from me.
Well, but see what we just did. We just had a conversation looking at an album cover. And
But
took
that either
those-
means we're desperate
and-
for conversation, or we can make any of that as we go along.
Oh.
it did have a place in our little conversation today, but that was pretty fun.
Well, I keep saying to Trace, I'm not the marrying kind, but she says it's too late.
Oh gosh.
Oh, dearie me. It just happened that way. Oh, I don't know. Keep going. Strangers
He's
in the
got
Night. Oh, no,
you.
wrong artist. Sorry.
Get him off.
Old man River, that old man River, he don't say nothing, but must know something. He keeps on rolling, keeps rolling along. He don't plant taters and he don't pick cotton. And them that plants them, they are soon forgotten. But old man River keeps rolling along. You and me, we sweat and strain. Bodies all aching and racked with pain. Tote that barge, lift that bale. You get a little drunk, you lands in jail. I get so weary and I'm sick of trying. Tired of living, but I'm feared of dying. And the old man River keeps rolling along. You and me, we sweat and strain. Our bodies all aching and racked with pain. Tote that barge, lift that bale. You get a little drunk, you lands in jail. But I get so weary and I'm sick of trying. Tired of living, but I'm feared of dying. And the old man River keeps rolling along.
And that was Old Man River, sung by Mark Adams from the album The Definitive Rat Pack. And Mark is with us in the studio. Mark, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us. So, you've been part of the Definitive Rat Pack for many, many years now. It must be a good 10 to 15, if I'm right.
Can't put an exact date on it, but I think you are. It must be between 10 and 15. Yeah.
I've seen you when you're with Flying Music, and you and your two co-stars, Stephen Triffett and George Daniel Long, have kind of come out of that and done your own thing with Definitive Rat Pack. How do you see that you've developed your act over the years?
I guess pretty much in the same way that the guys themselves would have developed their act. I mean, they bearing in mind that I guess you could say it started in the Sands Hotel in the 60s, although they'd known each other and worked with each other prior to that. But then I guess that's when it really got the attention of the public. When they were probably, in their early 40s. And now as we sort of move into sort of like middle age and beyond, we can adapt that show. So you're not sort of like restricted to any one particular time, which, I mean, if we'd sort of like tried to stay in the 40s, then you couldn't include some of the music that obviously, and some of the set pieces and the gags that would have followed, into the late 60s and the early 70s. So being the arbiter of your own show is pretty much what the three of us wanted. We didn't want to be restricted in any way.
So I remember Stephen saying, Stephen does the Frank Sinatra role, Cindy. I remember Stephen saying some time ago that he was frustrated, as you were, that your previous producers were looking to introduce later songs that weren't right for the era that you were.
Well, exactly. I mean, the show was set, just to the run up of the Kennedy elections, you know. So, and they were putting in songs like, you know, That's Live, Everybody Loves Somebody, My Way, which were recorded much later. And all right, we weren't doing a biopic, but it still sort of galled me a little bit that, you know, if you're setting it somewhere, don't have all these anachronisms going on.
Yeah. So you've kind of so really you've been able to kind of have the ability to kind of mold the Vintage Rat Pack to your own idea of what the Rat Pack is that right? Or have you still kind of tapped into what you think the public wants?
I guess it's a mixture of both. I mean, you can't do the shows and leave out some of the belting songs, because I think that would pretty much upset the audience. But then you've got, you know, people who are, you know, who know these guys probably maybe even better than I do. So you can be a little bit more obscure with Old Man River. Nadine never really only ever recorded that for these variety shows. I don't think, as far as my knowledge, the other guys might correct me on this, but I don't think that was ever released on an album or anything like that.
Wasn't.
So, you know, everyone knows the song, but I think they'll find it quite unusual. Oh, Dean Martin did a swing version of Old Man River. That's great, you know, with the big productions and the girls and everything on it. So, so we can tap into things like that, which I think that keeps our interest without being too, you know, too obscure.
So is that why you recorded that for the album as well, that particular song? Because it is unusual.
As soon as I saw him do it, I loved it. I said, I want to do that. You know, I think it's a bit different, you know. So I thought, I want to do that one.
No, I kind of like that. And I've seen your show innumerable times, haven't I, over the years? And I just think it's, to me, I always kind of, I think when we spoke before, Mike, is always kind of wonders, your audience, do they see you as the three guys, or do they acknowledge that you're acting in roles? It always fascinates me. And I said to Richard Shelton, I think you're going to Brazil, aren't you, in May, Richard Shelton? I said to him about that, and he said that he likes to make sure that he's Richard off stage, but when he's on stage, he's Frank. And he kind of sees that he has to kind of allow the audience to go along with the facade, I guess.
Yeah, I think I've had this conversation with you before, with other people. I think the difference with when you're doing the likes of Frank, Dean, and Sammy, and I think particularly with Dean, is that it's not just going out there and impersonating someone like doing an Elvis or a Freddie Mercury, or what, you know, for want of a better word, a tribute show, because he was much more than that with the personality. So it can be three-dimensional. And whether we're doing the show with just myself and Stephen, with a small band track, whatever, we will always make sure that it's character driven, as opposed to just going out there and we're going to be, you know, we're impressionists, you know, working for half an hour or whatever, just singing those songs. It's always rooted in what you believe the character would be doing.
I think that's kind of testament to kind of what you guys do, because I mean, I said this before as well. You're not impersonating. You're not like, you know, guys in a Chinese restaurant pretending to be Elvis kind of thing. You are bona fide performers acting in roles, and I think that's puts you above a lot of kind of other shows that could suffer from that kind of almost caricature style.
Well, I think that's because, you know, if you're going to do an Elvis show, you're just going to be doing the music, because as far as I'm concerned, you know, Elvis didn't sort of embrace a personality. I'm sure he came up with this act, but we have, you know, there's shtick, there's gags, there's interaction with the audience, there's the whole personification of someone being a slightly bombed, you know, the interaction between, you know, Frank and Dean, and the sort of like the dynamic of that relationship. You know, you can play that out as well as sort of sing those fantastic songs. And I'm not decrying anybody that goes and sings in a Chinese restaurant. You know, done it myself. You know, maybe not Chinese, but you go where, you know, where the gig is.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
There is that kind of suspension of disbelief, isn't there, that everyone buys into at that moment. Absolutely.
That's what you want, and I like to maintain that. I mean, we're doing a lot of shows at the moment in a place called Boysdale in Canary Wharf, which probably would have been similar to what the sounds may have been like. I.e., people, you know, reserve their seats, they go and have their dinner, and then they watch a show. And you know, I really don't like walking through, because, you know, there's the backstage facilities aren't great. So if you want to go to the restroom, you've got to walk through these people, and I find that always very awkward, because once you go on stage, I want to be in that moment for the hour or so, and I don't want, hey Dino, and it's so you want to suspend that disbelief for however long it takes, Ron. Yes.
Yeah. So I kind of I kind of saw you a few times as well, obviously in the matching rooms in the Hippodrome, and that was a very kind of intimate venue with the tables kind of nestled around the small stage.
Yeah, maximum 250 people. Absolutely.
And I think, to me, that worked for kind of what you're doing. It has the intimacy that you have that kind of reaction with the audience that you can see and feel as well.
Yeah. And I think doing that show and what we're doing at the moment, particularly, that steals you for when we did a lot of shows in the Boys Hill restaurant, and then coming up to Christmas. And then we went and did our first, big Christmas show in a theatre. And you said, oh my God, people really are silent. They're watching the show, they're listening to everything, because when you are playing, and I remember listening to the bootleg tapes of when the guys were in the sounds, and you can hear the cutlery, you can hear the plates rattling, you can hear voices in the background. So even though they were, mega stars at a particular time, that people would have been shuffling between tables and having a drink and moving around. And I'm sure that would have been good for them as well, because you have to work a little bit harder to keep the people's attention and to sort of reach them. And then, of course, you go to a theatre where everyone's paid all their money and they're very, very quiet. And my God, it's like it's amazing. I can lower the voice. I can be very quiet because they're hanging on every word.
So I suppose it's a different discipline. So I was going to ask you then, which would you prefer? But I'm guessing you like both venues for exactly those reasons, that you can have that difference in your performance.
Well, I guess if you got too much of one thing, you become used to that, and when you've got to go and do the other, you might not, step up to the mark. So I don't think it does you any harm. Nobody likes a late crowd where they've all had far too much to drink, and and they're singing along badly from the get-go, and all these subtle gags you try to you try to work out, it's just going for nothing. But I don't think it sort of did us any harm. So you've got to be a little bit harder hitting in that situation, and that's a bit of an anathema in itself, because the last thing Dean Martin was hard hitting. He used to say, I don't even breathe hard. He would be ultra relaxed, but I guess sometimes you just have to work that tiny little bit harder.
And you when we interviewed for That's Amore show, and you said, how long do you think you'd be going on playing Dean? And that was a good 10 years ago, wasn't it?
It was.
Has that time flown by? I'm guessing it probably has.
Sadly it has. Yes. Yes. I say sadly. I mean, listen, I enjoy what I do. I feel privileged. I mustn't forget the fact that I am an actor, particularly for my agent, who keeps sending me these self-tapes to sort of go and do a TV or a film or whatever. And I said, I can't do it because we got this, that, and the other. He's been very, he's been very forgiving, but I try, and when I can, to fit in, if I get the gig and I'm available, to try and do something else. I think that's just for my own, my own good, self, really.
So what else have you done recently away from the Rat Pack?
I've just been sent a couple of things to do, self-tapes, which are really nice, if they come off. But I did an episode of Cobra, the thing that was with Robert Carlyle. There was this new series that came out last year called Death in Provence. And again, you get a couple of little, commercial things pop up, and, a few solo things that happen. But I think the Dean Martin Rat Pack has underpinned, pretty much everything since, we started back in 2002.
Yeah.
It's been the majority.
And did you ever see that would be the case? Did you ever, when you first took the role on for?
Oh no, but I do remember a friend saying to me, when he came and saw us when we were at the Palladium, he said, "If you're clever, you could do this for years and years and years." And I thought, "You're kidding." No. But I think it was when we wanted to, when we sort of had the guts to sort of like do our own thing. That's when it had a life of its own.
One of my most favorite songs. I've got 8 grandchildren, and 3 of them are little girls. And Dean Martin is a huge thing in our house. We watch his videos, we watch his movies, we listen to his music, we have special nighttime music. But one song that my little girls love to listen to. And I was so excited whenever Elliot sent us our lineup for today was Old Man River. And, they love to watch his facial expressions and, they just love everything about the song. But I was telling Elliot, I said, there is such a great history about that song. I don't know if you've read about it, but it was actually a show tune from the 1927 musical Showboat.
That's correct.
And was written by Oscar Hammerstein. But it talked about the struggles and hardships of African Americans.
Absolutely.
And, I just read it and was just amazed that so many of Dean's songs had a history to them. And, I think that if we were to sing them today I don't know that they would have the reception that Dean had and that you have, in singing those. And so I was so excited whenever I saw Old Man River on the lineup.
Yeah. Well, I think correct. I think Frank, Sammy, and Dean all covered that song.
I think they did
individually. I mean, I remember Sinatra doing it when he was very young with a huge orchestra and holding that note which goes on forever. And when I saw Dean sort of do it as on his TV show, running down those steps straight into it, I thought, wow, with that. And I used to do that in solo shows when I used to sort of work as a guest entertainer on the ships, and you would give that music to the band, and it freaked them out.
It really would.
How fast it was, and when it goes to half time as well for that in the bridge.
And that's what's so amazing about his music is that he could take it from here to here with no struggle whatsoever.
Oh, no, absolutely, yeah.
And you just get captivated in that transition, and you wonder, whoa.
There's another version where it originally came out, and it was written. The score was written for him for the black and white TV special that he did, popular songs through the years, and you can find on YouTube his original performance of that in black and white.
And was it that arrangement that he did later on?
It was.
It was. So, wow. Yeah.
So it was taken then into, it was reused, but he does it on the YouTube one. You can see a black and white one. There's the choirs behind him. Yes. There's a certain energy in that. It's fascinating to watch the energy in it as well. But it is just a startling performance and arrangement. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
My little girls love that arrangement.
Can you just, what you were talking about earlier about the audience, engaging with the audience and creating that intimacy or whatever. There's also another one from Martin Lewis days where he's singing, I think, at the Copa in the very early days. And he breaks halfway through into the song and says, why is no one listening to me? And it's just, and then carries on with the song. And you can hear the voices and loudly and the clatter of cutlery and things.
Yes,
but he just says it in the sings it. Why is no one listening? So yeah, it's all there. But that's what we love about him in that way as well. I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I think as well. Kind of even in the TV shows, he has that link to the audience with the kind of pretending to fluff the lines and pretending to not know where his cue is, and I just like. I think that's why he's a much more I've got a homely performer. It's probably not the right word, the homely performer, but much more down to earth performer. I think as a result, you look at Sinatra, who was very much, this is my songs. I'm going to sing. I'm going to tell you who recorded it, who arranged it, when I first released it, kind of thing. But when Dean's on, when Sammy's on, it's here's my song, listen to me sing, and that's it. And I think that's a lovely juxtaposition. I think that Frank has with Dean. We've spoken to kind of previous guests and trying to analyze why those two men were best friends when they were so different.
Yes. Yeah, they were. It was quite interesting. Going back to the Dean Martin TV show and its success is that when I was listening to, just out of interest, I thought, let's Google Greg Garrison, and he was talking about why he said at that time a lot of stars had their own TV shows, many TV shows. He said it was Andy Williams, Nipsey Russell, Flip Wilson. They all had their own TV shows. But what made Dean's TV show different is exactly what you just said. He kind of, I'm just going to have fun. And you look at having fun, and if I'm having fun, the audience will buy into that. And I think that's what set his show apart. I mean, I think if it was an Andy Williams show, everything would be perfect. sometimes you can see on Dean's show that the boom mic was in shot. Who cares? If they're watching the boom mic, then they're not watching Dean. And
that's exactly what Greg Garrison said.
Yes, exactly.
In an interview.
Yeah.
Somebody had mentioned, well, you can see the mic, and Greg said if they're upset because the mic is here, they need to go to another program.
Yeah, and I think let's not Greg Garrison was a huge influence on Dean's career at that particular time, and really looked after him. Make sure he is the number one. He's the number one. Nobody's going to upstage him.
Yeah, I mean, he kept with Dean, didn't he? Right up until almost when Dean kind of backed away from the spotlight. He did all the Christmas shows up until the 80s. He produced the roasts up until the mid 80s. So he was, as you say, he was like a good 15 years of kind of guiding Dean. I think Dean probably needed that. I mean, as we all know, Dean wasn't lazy, but he didn't ever really put himself out. If he didn't want to do it, he didn't want to do it. But I think people like Greg, who knew what was right for Dean, were able to convince him to do these things.
Yeah, he wasn't pushy like Frank.
No,
and or a control freak like Frank. He just sort of point the tally in the right direction. That's all he wanted. But having someone like Greg Garrison would have been great for him, because he would have looked after him and seen him as number one. I mean, interestingly enough, the show that they both did, and Cindy may correct me on this, was it at Westchester in the 70s? It was a Frank and Dean show, which was televised by Greg Garrison. And Greg Garrison said it's the Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra. So Dean got top billing over Frank. And Greg Garrison would have made sure that happened.
In one of the interviews, Greg said he never called Dean during the week. He never bothered him.
No. He
took care of him, and Dean drove up on the parking lot, did a show, and drove home. Greg had it all worked out. And I'm friends with one of the cameramen on Dean's show. That was a cameraman on Dean's show. And, Russell has said the same thing. Greg took care of Dean from start to finish and made him look good. And that's why they had such a good relationship, I think, is because he was comfortable with that.
He left Dean alone.
Trusted him with that.
Yeah.
And you don't get all of the awards for best show without somebody driving you like Greg Garrison did, and not feel like you were driven. Greg made it happen.
Yeah.
But I think that's the kind of intimacy that you create, isn't it, Mark, in your show with the audience? You're not there to perform to, as in watching, say, Chicago or something, but you create that rapport with the audience, so you all become one in that theatre.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and I think that's the vibe, as the kids say, you create.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that's kind of the difference that with Definitive Rat Pack, is that you have that connection with the audience and that intimacy because of the venues you play. So what's next for you? You said you're going to Brazil in May. What else have you got planned for the rest of the year, Mark?
Well, we've almost got a semi-residency at Boysdales. They have two venues, and we do two shows there. We do the show with the three of us, and Steve and I also do some Frank and Dean shows there, which are quite enjoyable because we get to sing more, and we do a lot more of the duets. We do The One I Love Belongs to Somebody Else, and we can experiment with a few of those. So that will be running right the way through until then. We've got the Christmas show again, and they're already booking up. Hopefully, we can pick up where we left off pre-COVID and go back to Europe again, because we were halfway through a tour when we had to come back from that. So it'd be nice to sort of think we can pick up and do that. And we're also hoping that maybe early 24 we can go back to Scandinavia, because we know some people out there where we first took the show and when we first sort of like put it out there. So it'd be quite nice to go back there as well. But there's nothing set in stone at the moment. I think people are still a little bit nervous of booking long tours because of what happened a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But we're fortunate in as much that we don't need a big lead up time. We don't need months and months of rehearsals. We can just we can literally make a phone call and we're there with whatever size band we've got. We're lucky in that sense that, you know, we're not doing Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah,
You know,
I remember saying to you a while ago, like, you know, can I come along and see you rehearse? And you laughed at me. Rehearsal.
Rehearsal after the show.
Exactly.
I do have a question for you, Mark. What inspired you to take on this character? Did you listen to him? Did you watch a show growing up?
I have to say the answer to that is no. I knew very little about him. My uncle and my father had a good music. My dad loved he loved Vic Damone and Tony Bennett, and my uncle really loved Sinatra, and he sort of played me some Sinatra songs. So I knew a lot about Frank Sinatra, a little bit about Dean, but it was literally, you know, I auditioned for this job, and you know, I thought, oh, I can sing a bit. My voice is in a similar register, and for my audition, I thought, I'm not going to go and sing Natsamori or Volare. I'm going to sing "Let Me Go, Lover," which I sort of I did that, which I thought was nice, and I got the gig, and then it was a case of really researching this guy, and then this is before YouTube and anything. So my next door neighbor at the time, her partner was a big Dean Martin fan, and when I told him I got this job, he said, "Oh, you've got to watch this," and he gave me, it was a cassette copy then, you know, a VHS copy of the concert in '65. They did Kiel, that one with Johnny Carson hosting it.
Yeah.
And I watched that, and then by that time I'd been given a script of Thoughts, and I thought, God, you've got him so wrong. You've got this guy so wrong. It was broadly comic, it was crude, some of the song choices were wrong, and then that's when I really got into trouble with with the director and the producers. I said, you've got to do King of the Road. People know it. It might not be synonymous with, but you've got to do King of the Road. So at my behest, we got that song into the show, and I said, please, can I'm going to write my own links, because I'm not saying this is rubbish. It really was poor. And then I managed to sort of listen to them. Michael Friedland, who I think he moved to America, but he was a British interviewer, and he had these shows on the radio, and I managed to get those
some
on.
great books.
Yeah, and some books. And I got some cassettes of him listening to Dean. And then I found this company called Guthi Renker, which you'll know probably.
Yeah.
You know that. And so I got all the stuff shipped over from America, the Dean's variety shows and the roasts. And then I had to go and buy a DVD player which played the American format, because it wouldn't play on anything at home. I've got all this stuff, I can't play it.
Yeah.
And so that's when the research sort of really started. And by that time, I was really hooked, because I thought, no, this guy just doesn't go and sing That's Amore. There's so much more to him. And it's when I saw the TV shows, I thought, wow, I've never seen anything like this.
He was very thematic too. You know, his set of songs were very thematic in his shows.
Yes.
And I think also, and I tell Elliot and Ron this, I analyze way too much, but his songs also paint a picture of where he is in his life.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes they're happy and sometimes they're not. And I think that's what draws people, is that he was a real life person with real life problems, and he sang about them, and you feel better about yours now.
Yeah.
And he you know, his music is just one of a kind.
Well, I'm praying for rainy California, so the grapes can grow, they can make more wine. And I'm sitting in a honky in Chicago, with a broken heart and a woman on my mind. I match the man behind the bar for the jukebox, and the music takes me back to Tennessee. When they ask who's the fool in the corner crying, I say, little old wine drinker me. here last week from down in Nashville. 'Cause my baby left for Florida on a train. Well, I thought I'd get a job and just forget her. But in Chicago, a broken heart is still the same. I matched the man behind the bar for the jukebox, and the music takes me back to Tennessee. When they ask who's the fool in the corner crying, I say, little old wine drinker me. I said, little old wine drinker me. Yeehaw!
So Mark, why does that song, Little Old Wine Drinker Me, hold a special relevance for you?
Because Barry Robinson, who was the musical director, who on That's Amore, had the idea of putting the little girls, which he didn't do, the answer phrase, which the girls record. And my mate Giles Torreira, do you know Giles? Who lately played Sammy and has just finished playing Othello at the National. He's gone on to have a massive career from being understudy Sammy. He actually plays harmonica on it as well. So that's the reason I put that on.
Wonderful. We'll have to get him on.
I'll get him on. I think he does. He's done his own Sammy show, so get him on. He's so busy. I mean, he's done remarkably well. He got awarded an OBE for his services to theatre.
Fabulous.
So his career's gone, and I am so pleased for him, because I'll never forget the day that he made his debut in the West End as an understudy, and I thought, wow, oh my gosh, you really have got it, you know. And not necessarily, again, not being an impression of Sammy. He didn't come out like that, like give the Kermit voice. He just went out there and embodied him in Giles's spirit, and just absolutely grabbed that audience the way Sammy would have done. Because
and I think that's not being a performer myself as well. Mark, I think that's the kind of the best tribute, I think, to who you're portraying, because you're not being Dean Martin, you're being a version of Dean Martin.
Absolutely.
And I think that's
the same with all of us. I mean, George cosmetically is great as Sammy, and when George sings Bojangles, I mean, he invests so much in that, because George is a massive dog lover and all the rest of it, and so he really. There've been occasions when they want him to do it again. He said, I can only do it once a night. It just takes so much out of me.
Yeah, absolutely. He said, I think when we interviewed him previously for your brochure, he said that he finds it difficult to sing because it takes a lot out of him. And obviously we'll try and get him on and chat to him about that as well. But I mean, his performance of that is always a standout for me. Yeah. But I hope we'll get him on to chat about that. But what's your highlight when you play Dean?
Oh gosh, sometimes it's when you've gone out there and you've been sort of fairly irreverent and changed the words to songs, or something's happened and you sort of like crack a gag in the middle of a song, or something, what else has happened, or someone in the band's done something, and then we do a version of Everybody Loves Somebody, which starts off just with on the piano, and I think I got this from Dean's TV show when they sort of decided after a couple of seasons, or maybe 4 or 5 seasons, he's never actually sung Everybody Loves Somebody straight. He just sings a little bit of it, and then he's wee, and he goes into his gags. And so I think it's just him. It starts with Ken Lane on the piano, and so we do a really sort of stripped down version of Everybody Loves Somebody. And then people have been chatting and laughing or whatever through it, and then they you can put a song across, and it is a beautiful song as well. So that's often a highlight when you catch it right, when the audience are sort of really with you and you can't hear a pin drop. Plus, in the Christmas shows, we do a version of Peace on Earth, Silent Night, which is also
my favorite,
which is really really lovely as well. I mean, that goes there. We wouldn't do that in the clubs, because I think you do not want. It's got to be. You can't hear a pin drop. Yeah. So in some respects, it's nice as an actor to sometimes have those little moments of pathos, which, because everything else is sort of like fun and irreverence, but and Dean would do that as also, you know, a little bit on stage. He would sing a song, but brother, can you spare a dime? You know, you know, and all of a sudden, oh wow, he can put a song across with great, which is heartfelt as well as being this, you know, this monster comic. Yeah.
And I
so
think
those
as well,
moments are always quite nice.
I think you alluded to earlier, Cindy, previously this week about if you want to hear my songs, listen to my albums.
By the album.
Yeah, by the album. Yeah. And I think I like the way that he can juxtaposition that, and he can justify that, and he never got criticized for that.
No.
It's, you know, when you kind of listen to kind of modern concerts, I suppose, yes, there are always different versions of a popular song of any artist, but it's more or less the same. And I think the only other person who probably did parody his own songs was Elvis, and he got that from Dean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Iveson tonight. Yeah, that one as well.
Yeah. And it's interesting as well to obviously to know that Elvis is such a huge icon, but his influence was our Dean.
That's right. Well, they say it was a missing link, don't they, between Bing and Elvis in the middle there. Yeah.
And I forget what song it is, and it's a live performance, but the cymbal and the drums are just outrageously loud. And Dean just makes a comment, jump through that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's a version of June in January, isn't it?
June in January, that's right. Yeah.
Jump through that.
So you're all playing? Yeah.
Nice
Elliot,
to meet
can I
you.
just say something about Little Old Wine Drinker and That's Amore?
Yep.
You know, talking about the age thing. They are like the two almost anthems that everyone sings along to, a bit like Sweet Caroline and those kind of things in the culture. And right across the age spectrum, you'll get people, everyone in an audience singing those two songs, word for word almost, of whatever age. And it always surprises me when you see that, you know, and it's, so that's an indelible part of Dean's legacy in our culture, I think, those two songs.
You're right. Yes.
Trailer for sale or rent, rooms to let at 50 cents. No phones, no pool, no pets. Ain't got no cigarettes. I've got 2 hours of pushing broom. Buys a 8 by 12 4-bedroom. I'm a man of means, by no means king of the road. 3rd boxcar, a midnight train, destination Bangor, Maine. Oh, worn-out suit and shoes, don't pay no union dues. I smoke old stogies I have found, short but not too big around. I'm a man of means, by no means king of the road. I know every engineer on every train, well, all of their children and all of their names. Every handout in every town, every lock that ain't locked with noise around. I sing trailer for sale or rent, rooms to let at 50 cents. No phones, no pool, no pets. Ain't got no cigarettes. I smoke old stogies I have found, short but not too big around. I'm a man of means, by no means king of the road, king of the road, king of the road.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you again. It's been a long time since we spoke to you last time, and hopefully we'll speak to you again for that. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Lovely to meet you, Ron. Lovely to meet you, Cindy.
King of the road.
And that brings us nicely to the end of episode 5. Cindy, Ron, and Elliot would like to thank Mark Adams for joining us, and you for listening. The Definitive Rat Pack will be performing in Dublin on May 5th, and then Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro for August. Please visit thedefinitiveratpack.com for full details and also Facebook. Next time, we'll be talking about the classic movie Ocean's 11 and chatting with actor, singer, horticulturalist George Daniel Long about his career on and off stage and his long-term role as Sammy Davis Jr. So, look out for our next episode available on Spotify and YouTube from May 5th. Until then, it's a warm goodbye from us here at the DMA.
I really don't have too much to say. I'd be an idiot if I tried to follow everything that was said tonight. And I know damn well I ain't no idiot. You laugh, I know that. But I do want to say, in conclusion, this thrilling, wonderful, and beautiful night has loused up a great poker game.
You've been listening to the DMA Podcast, a Shaken Not Stirred and Memory Hive production for the Dean Martin Association. The DMA Podcast is copyright Memory Hive Productions and is a not-for-profit project. There are no financial incentives or fees payable to any contributor, guest, or performer.